Hi, and welcome to the Health Begins with Mom show. I am Dorit Palvanov, your host. On this podcast, I will share insights and interviews on health, parenting, and explore the question of what does it take to thrive as women, wives, and mothers. Now, let's get going with today's episode. Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of the Health Begins with Mom podcast. This is Dorit Palvanov, your host. Today I wanted to talk about a very, very important topic, which came up with one of my clients, and this is the question of whether veganism is the ultimate and the healthiest diet possible for women and also children and families in general. And this is a very, very important conversation. It is a touchy subject. I am aware of it. But I feel like I have to talk about this because it's been coming up again and again in my practice. People, women especially, feeling like, there's this question of death and eating dead animals and animals who have gone through suffering, which I totally can understand and relate to. And so I really wanted to record this episode for you, educate you a little bit about this topic and what is involved, and just maybe, maybe upgrade this perception in your head a little bit. And yeah, so today is going to be juicy and interesting and important. But before I do so, I just want to remind everybody that today's any of the show notes of any links that I mentioned today are going to can be found over at the show notes at over at my website. So it's going to be healthbeginswithmom.com/EP-59. And also, I almost forgot to mention. Oh my gosh, I should do like a big deal out of it. I actually celebrated an anniversary of the podcast. It was June 1st June 1st of 2017 when I started this podcast. And oh my gosh, it's been a year already, almost 60 episodes in. It's been such a fun experience for me. I love doing this, love recording episodes for you, love connecting with you like this. I've been looking for a medium to share my message for a long time. I tried YouTube, didn't work for me. Took too much time. I talk about sustainability a lot, and that's a big value in my life and in my business. And so I find that with podcasting, it is a sustainable way for me to share my message and to still be able to feel like I'm not totally killing myself while I share my message. And it's also not time consuming. So yeah, I'm super excited about that. The podcast has been doing great. We've had about 4,000 downloads so far, people all around the world, and I've been able to connect with women and help them and support them and their families. So it's been a lot of fun. And I just love it. I'm so grateful for this medium. And yeah, so that is that is my little celebration over here. So thank you so much for being a listener. Thank you so much for subscribing to the show and hearing to me. Just kind of share and talk and just it's thank you so much for being a part of my life. So okay, so now let's start talking about today's topic. So it is a touchy topic, and I found this really great article online and I extracted it from the Weston A. Price Foundation's article, which is called The Ethics of Eating Meat, which is a radical view. And it's authored by somebody called Charles Eisenstein. I'm not sure who he is, but I love the article. And the Weston A. Price Foundation, if you're not familiar with them, it's been established by Dr. Weston A. Price, who was actually a dentist, and he researched indigenous cultures and tribes around the world, and he found that. Because he was a dentist, he realized that a lot of his patients in the United States had deformed teeth, and so he wanted to find whether the way people eat and their diet and their nutrition has anything to do with the fact that so many of the children who are being born in the Western society are having deformed teeth that need, braces and correction and all that, and so he went on this journey, and he basically started documenting and researching and studying these cultures, and he found a clear correlation. He found, like, there are amazing, there are pictures online of these children, and how they're born with full, round, beautiful faces, and how their teeth are just beautiful, and they're white and they're flawless, and it's like, it's not just, a few children here and there, it's like for the entire tribe. And these people, I have to remember, they don't have they don't brush their teeth regularly, if even, and but also he has realized that their diets, they're not exposed to sugar as much as we are. They don't consume juices, and they consume a lot of their diet is basically very rich in animal fat and healthy fat, which he basically claimed that is behind their just superb health and amazing teeth. And so, after he passed, obviously he wrote papers, and he published his studies and his findings. And so after he passed, there was an organization that was created on his in his name. It's called the Weston A. Price Foundation, and this organization, they are very, very pro animal food. Obviously, they support a sustainable farming, and raising animals in a healthy way, in a compassionate way. And I believe that this organization, it's doing a really great job explaining the problem of today's food system with regards to animal food, but they do not advocate veganism as the only best way to eat and nourish ourselves. And so today, that's what I wanted to talk about, and to share with you. So from my work with families, I also have learned that some people thrive on veganism. Like, really, it's just like they just know in their body that meat and fish and dairy, it's not good for them. They thrive on grains and vegetables and fruit, and that is great. Really, guys, you have to remember, 7 billion diets for 7 billion people, and that is really the truth. At the end of the day, nobody can tell you how to eat, right? But I've never shared this here on the podcast, but I should. It's an episode for another podcast. But I actually have tried, I think, everything. I've tried vegetarian to be. I've tried to be vegetarian. I've tried to not eat dairy. I've tried to just be vegan. I've tried. Oh my gosh, I tried so many things, and honestly, I've tried being animal, like free from any animal food for a little less than 6 months, and we did it together with my husband. We actually went to Tony Robbins's event. It was, when was it? It was before my second daughter was born, so it was 2010. And we came back so inspired after this event, and so we've decided to just wean ourselves off of meat and fish and dairy, and to just, basically go vegan. And we've done that. And in the first few months we felt okay, but during, like, throughout the, as we came, as this progressed, I just noticed, my husband actually was okay, but I have noticed that I was becoming so bitter and resentful, and just somebody who I just I didn't remember myself like this. I was always a very hyper and happy person, and I just loved life. But at that time, especially, I remember I was just not happy. I wasn't my very best. And so I started researching, and I've realized that it was a lot of it was because I wasn't consuming animal food. And so animal food actually, when you it has the nutrients that are precursors to creating happy hormones in the brain. And so I'm like, oh my gosh, that is the reason why I'm so bitter and so unhappy and so cranky all the time, right? And remember, like, at the time I was raising a baby. Like, at the time my daughter was born already, and I just couldn't do it. I was depressed. I was not happy. Um, and so I realized that this style of eating, which I was so sold to at the time, um, I just believed that this is the truth. Like, if I don't have to eat these animals, then I'm not going to, and I'm just going to do amazing without it. I just have to learn how to cook with vegetables, and I'm going to do amazing. And then I've learned that actually wasn't the truth. And I slowly started reintroducing animal food back into my diet, and oh my gosh, it was such a difference. And I started noticing it immediately. I just felt calmer. I was able to start breathing again. I was nicer to my husband. I was nicer to my kids. I was nicer to myself too. I started coming out of my shell more. I can't really say that I've had a postpartum depression, but it really did feel like it, especially after having two kids. So this is my personal experience. I also know that a lot of children don't do well on a vegan diet, and I also find that being vegan, it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work, especially for those of us who are not educated so much about food. Like, I find, like, to be a really quote unquote good vegan, to really eat right and to feel like you are truly nourished and you're not lacking any nutrients, you have to be educated about food. Like, you almost have to have a degree. And a lot of people who come to me, they're like, how can I eat in a way that is easy, in a way that is healthy, but without getting a degree in nutrition? And I totally understand you guys, and this is exactly what I'm creating in my Health Begins with Mom Mastery program. My goal for this program is to help you guys eat, to create recipes in a way that are going to be easy. This is number one, easy, that take less than 30 minutes to put together, and that the whole family can enjoy. This is my biggest wish for my family, right? Because I do believe that food plays a huge role in how we nourish and take care of ourselves. But also, I don't want this to become such a mundane task that requires so much of my time that eventually I just end up resenting it and not wanting to do anything with it. And I just, like a lot of my clients, they just they couldn't care less, and they just go and end up buying food from outside or just eating junk food. And so this is what I'm creating here. So I'm hoping to launch this program really, really, really soon. It's hard for me to commit to a date because I really want to make sure that it's really good by the time I launch it. And so I'm going to give myself the time to do a really good job. But for those of you who are subscribed to the show, you will the for sure hear about this when it's available for launching. And yeah, okay, I'm rambling again. So yeah, so as I said, from my work with families, I've learned that some people, including my family and especially children and mothers, we just simply don't thrive without animal food in our diet. And this is important because there are ways that we can nourish ourselves and at the same time be compassionate for animals and responsible for the environment. This is also another value that I cherish very, very much. And so it's not about telling you, oh my gosh, you have to eat food, animal food with every single meal of the day. No, that's not what I'm saying. And so let me just explain what I mean, and you will understand more. So animal meat can be a great source of protein for your family. However, there are a few things that you need to know before you stock up on the best deals for meats in your local supermarket. So let's dig a little bit deeper and see the problem along with the solution that the Weston A. Price Foundation and I suggest for you and for your family. So, not all animals are raised the same way. This is important, okay? And I think a lot of you guys who are really compassionate souls, sweet souls who don't want to hurt anybody, like um, it matters. It matters to me. It matters to you. It matters to our children, right? I see so many cute videos on YouTube of children who are so compassionate and they refuse to eat, anything that was basically killed or dead or died or had to die for the purpose of feeding us, right? Who are we to kill those poor animals and to take their life so that we can eat, right? So, in order to feed modern society's enormous appetite for meat, animals endure unimaginable suffering in conditions of extreme filth, crowding, and confinement. Right? Chickens, they're packed 20 to a cage, if not more. Hogs are kept in concrete stalls so narrow that they can never turn around. That's horrible. Cows are supposed to be raised on a farm with access to plenty of grass. But unfortunately, today's cows are raised without an access to grass. No grass at all. They fed corn, which they don't even know how to digest, which in most cases this corn is GMO. So whoever doesn't know what GMO is genetically modified organisms, and these cows, they're kept in cages where they are cramped and unable to turn around or even sit. So this is how bad it is, right? Veals, which are baby cows, are separated from their mothers right after birth, causing them an enormous pain and an anxiety from their first day on earth. So you guys, I understand how big the problem is. I totally understand that. Now, think about it. How can these animals meet, nourish, or support your health, right? A sacred or terrified animal is as bad for consumption as a sick animal. I'm going to repeat that. A scared or terrified animal is as bad for consumption as a sick animal. Our health is not the only reason why this is a problem, right? Raising animals in such conditions is very costly to the environment for a few major reasons. And I took this data from the Weston A. Price Foundation's website. Number one, meat animals are fed anywhere from 5 to 15 pounds of vegetable protein for each pound of meat produced, which is an immoral practice in a world where so many go hungry. Number two, whereas a 1/6 acre of land can feed a vegetarian for a full year, over 3 acres are required to provide the grain needed to raise a year's worth of meat for the average meat eater. Like, it's insane, right? Think about this. It's insane. In order to feed a cow grain, which they're not even designed to eat, We require 3 times the size of a land that is necessary for that can feed a vegetarian for a year. Like, it's crazy. Number 3, all too often, those acres consist of clear-cut rainforests, right? So we destroy natural habitat for other animals in order to create these conditions that are so inhumane. Number 4, the toll on water resources is equally grim. The meat industry accounts for half of US water consumption. Half. 2,500 gallons per pound of beef compared to 25 gallons per pound of wheat. Number 5, polluting fossil fuels are another major input into meat production. As for the output, 1.6 million tons of livestock manure pollutes our drinking water. And number 6, let's not forget the residues of antibiotics and synthetic hormones that are increasingly showing up in municipal water supplies. So the problem is big, and it's real, and it's not something that we can ignore. So even without considering the question of taking life, right, which I will get to a little bit later today, these facts that I just mentioned, they make it clear that it is immoral to aid and encourage the system by eating meat. And of course, understandable why so many people turn to a vegan lifestyle. So if a vegan lifestyle is what you want for yourself and your family, great. Just please, please, please make sure to educate yourself well before you jump into that cold feed. Like I said before, you really need to understand how nutrients work in the body and how to pair foods in the right way in order to thrive with food and not to get into deficiencies down the road. However, if you are like me, someone who cannot thrive without eating animal meat, keep listening, as this lesson is, like I said, it's important. So in my opinion, the real problem here is not eating meat, but the problem is raising meat. And the truth is, there are other ways of raising animals for food, ways that can make livestock an environmental asset rather than a liability, and in which animals do not lead lives of suffering. In a farm that is not just a production facility, but an ecology, livestock has a beneficial role to play. The cycles, the connections, and the relationships among crops, trees, insects, manure, birds, soil, water, and people on a living farm form an intricate web, right? Organic in its original sense. A thing of beauty, not easily lumped into the same category as a 5,000 animal concrete hog factory. I'm sure you are guessing why this is the current situation, because it is more efficient to have 1,000 cows in a high-density feedlot eating cord monoculture on a chemically dependent 5,000-acre farm than it is to have 50 cows grazing on each of 20 250-acre family farms. It is more efficient in dollar terms and probably more efficient in terms of human labor too. Fewer farmers are needed, and in a society that belittles farming, that is considered a good thing, right? So if you want to learn more about that, you should watch the video on YouTube called Life According to Monsanto, and I'll definitely include a link below this video. So, in an ideal world, meat would be just as plentiful perhaps, but it would be much more expensive. So, and that is as it should be. Traditional societies understood that meat is a special food. They revered it as one of nature's highest gifts, to the extent that our society translates high value into high price. Meat should be expensive, right? So the prevailing prices for meat and other foods are extraordinarily low relative to total consumer spending, both by historical standards and in comparison to other countries. Ridiculously cheap food impoverishes farmers, demeans food itself, and makes less efficient modes of production uneconomical. So, if food and meat in particular were more expensive, then perhaps we wouldn't waste so much of it. Killing an animal for food is another issue we have to talk about, and also how to explain that to our children and to ourselves who are very, very sensitive to it. My own kids love animals, and when I serve them with chicken or beef, they always ask if that chicken is now dead. Right? It is not easy for parents to explain to children why we kill animals for food, and some parents choose to become vegan as they cannot bear the feeling of hypocrisy in their lives, which is totally understandable, by the way. I totally get that. There are ways to explain animal death to children. But before I tell you how to explain this to kids, let's understand it ourselves, right? It is impossible to fully address the moral implications of eating meat without thinking about the significance of life and death. So, the real question here is, what exactly is wrong about killing? And for that matter, what is so bad about dying? These are big questions, but to make our discussions short, I will answer it in one word: fear. The fear lies in our culture's dualistic separation of body and soul, matter and spirit, man and nature. The legacies of many scientists hold that we are finite, that we are separate beings, that life and its events are accidental, that the workings of life and the universe may be wholly explained in terms of objective laws applied to inanimate, elemental parts, and therefore meaning is a delusion and God is a projection of our wishful thinking. If material life is all there is, and if life is without real purpose, then of course death is the ultimate disaster. When religion abandoned the explanation of how the world works, cosmology to physics, it retreated to the realm of the non-worldly. Spirit became the opposite of matter, something elevated and separate. It did not matter too much what you did in the world of matter, it was unimportant, so long as your immaterial soul were saved. So, under a dualistic view of spirituality, living right as a being of flesh and blood in the world of matter becomes less important. Human life becomes a temporary excursion, an inconsequential distraction from the eternal life of the spirit. Other culture, more ancient and wiser culture, did not see it like this. They believed in a sacred world of matter infused with spirit. Animism, we call it, the belief that all things are possessed of a soul. If all things are soul, then life in the flesh, in the material world, is sacred. When death itself, rather than a life wrongly lived, is the ultimate disaster, it is easy to see why an ethical person would choose vegetarianism. To deprive a creature of life is the ultimate crime, especially in the context of a society that values safety over fun and security over the inherent risk of creativity. When meaning is a delusion, then ego, the self's internal representation of itself in relation to not self, is all there is. Death is never right. Part of a larger harmony, a larger purpose, a divine tapestry, because there is no divine tapestry. The universe is impersonal, mechanical, and soulless. In the holistic worldview, however, the moral question to ask oneself about food is not was there killing, but rather is this food taking in rightness and harmony? The cow is a soul, yes, and so is the land and the ecosystem and the planet. Did that cow lead the life a cow ought to live? Is the way it was raised beautiful or was it ugly? There is a time to live and there is a time to die. That is the way of nature. If you think about it, prolonged suffering is rare in nature. Our meat industry profits from the prolonged suffering of animals, people, and the earth. But that is not the only way. When a cow lives the life a cow ought to live, when its life and death are consistent with a beautiful world, then for me, there is no ethical dilemma in killing that cow for food. Of course, there is pain and fear when the cow is taken to the slaughter, and when the robin pulls up the worm, and when the wolves down the caribou, and when the hand uproots the weed, and that makes me sad, makes me so sad. There is much to be sad about in life, but underneath the sadness is a joy that is dependent not on avoiding pain and maximizing pleasure, but on living rightly and well. So, how should you explain animal killing to children? I promise to help you answer that question. In my opinion, it is important that we teach our children not only about the body, but also about the soul. If you are up for a serious conversation with your child about this topic, I highly recommend you read The Conscious Parent by Dr. Shefali Tsabari, and I'll include a link to the book in the show notes below. It is much easier to explain why we kill animals for food to children who understand the concept of body and spirit. You can tell that child that God had created that cow and it had a great life on this planet. It grazed on the earth, it ate grass, it mated and had babies, but at some point it was time for this cow's soul to be reunited with God again. So humans take it mercifully and kill that animal while minimizing her suffering. When we eat that animal's meat, we help to elevate her soul, and that is the cycle of life. This is just the reality, my love. Suffering and fear is a part of nature, right? Think about this. The deer is also scared when chased by a lion, and the mice is also scared when chased by the cat. But we shall not be scared and intimidated about this because God is perfect. And if he created the world in such a way, it means that this is the best way for all of us. So now that you know about the ethics of eating meat, let's talk about how to buy meat, how to buy poultry and fish that has the highest amount of nutrients. So let's talk about red meat. Red meat is mostly beef, lamb, veal, which is the baby of the cow, and hogs. So since cows don't move a lot, farmers can keep them confined and jammed into a small area, whereas lambs are very active and they need to move more. Otherwise, they just die. So as a result, beef meat is generally cheaper than lamb because of the space it needs. Cows also have more meat relative to lambs, making it cheaper, making it another reason for the cheaper price. So when buying red meat, try to stick to a local or organic grass-fed beef or lambs. And grass-fed, that's what it means. It means that this cow was eating meat. Was eating grass, just like it was designed to. If that is not possible, choose the kosher red meat. So according to the Jewish law, slaughtering must be ethical, and humans are not allowed to inflict unnecessary pain upon preparing the animal for food, which, by the way, was the message we received from Tanya Robbins as well. It was so inspiring to hear somebody who is not Jewish talk about, if you are choosing to eat meat, if you must eat meat, please make sure to buy kosher meat. So as a result, animals are animals that are slaughtered by laws of Hekshare, which are the laws of which are basically the Jewish law of Hekshare, of making the animal, of slaughtering the animal, they're much healthier for eating because they contain a smaller amount of the hormone adrenaline in the blood of the animal, right? Which is pumped when the animal is scared, right? So, with regards to poultry, chicken and turkey, chicken and turkeys are also raised differently because chicken are smaller and generally don't need as much space. Farmers cramp them together, sometimes 20 birds in one cage. This is crazy. It breaks my heart. As a result, chickens grow more fat, they're more aggressive, and develop all sorts of diseases. On top of that, chickens are fed genetically modified corn and grains, which really just add to the problem. The turkey, although having a similar diet to the chicken, needs much more space and therefore cannot be crammed into a cage. So because of the differences in the ways chickens and turkeys are raised, there is a difference in the nutrients their meat provides. So when buying chickens, notice how fragile their bones and meat are, right? Especially if they were conventionally grown. This is all due to the unhumane ways that they have been raised. Their meat is usually higher in fat content relative to the turkey. So when buying chicken, choose the ones that have had an organic diet and were pasture raised. So they had lots of exposure to the sun. These chickens will be smaller in size relative to the ones that they sell at the grocery store. And you also, well, now you know the reason, right, for that. If organic and pasture raised is not an option, choose turkey meat instead. If the meat of the turkey is higher in protein and it's leaner than the chicken. And kosher chicken and turkey is also a much healthier option. Fish and seafood. So this is basically anything that grows in the sea, right? This goes under the category of seafood. So fish used to be a highly nutritious food, right? You kept hearing omega-3s and healthy fats and all that. And it also provides a great source of protein and like I said, healthy fats and in particular omega-3 fats. Sadly, today, not all fish is good for you. Most fish we see today at the grocery store is farmed. And the meaning of this is that it was raised on farms in pools where fish were crammed together and fed low quality foods such as corn and soy that contain little to no omega-3 at all. So in other words, eating farmed fish gives you very little nutritional value, if at all. Other drawbacks of farmed fish are they're loaded with toxins and bacteria which damage local ecosystems, and they live in their feces, which make them extremely dirty and sick. I've heard this in particular with regards to the tilapia fish, so stay away from tilapia. So next time you are about to buy fish, choose the ones that are widely caught. Now, having said that, we now know that the oceans are polluted as well and contaminated with heavy metals such as mercury, which is highly toxic to humans. So keep consumption of fish in general to a minimum as well, no more than twice per week. And if you want to eat fish, then please make sure to buy widely caught fish. Now, I also wanted to mention a few words about tuna because I know a lot of mamas are big into tuna. So tuna is mostly sold canned, right? So canning is not a problem when there is no BPA in the lining of the can, which is super hard to find. Most canned products have BPA lining. So with regards to tuna, there are really very few brands that you have to choose from. I'm not going to mention brands because you guys are all over the world and you have access to different things. So with regards to tuna, stay away from anything that has a BPA lining. And when it comes to healthy hormones and healthy nervous system, mercury is a big problem. And so in my programs, in the way I teach people to eat, I do not have anything with tuna, because I believe that tuna, in my own life, I was a tuna addict at some point in my life. I used to eat tuna every single day when I was a teenager, and I've had very terrible cystic acne, which I think it was, I know now that my liver was clogged and I had other problems, but tuna just added to the problem. And so just a little while ago, I decided to go off tuna, and I feel much better in general, right? So I do not recommend consuming tuna, but if you do want, please make sure that you're buying the one that is the brands that do not contain BPA. So to wrap up, next time you go shopping for food, please buy the right stuff according to what you've learned today. An important note with regards to buying the good quality meats: you will see your grocery bill grow a lot, and that is how it should be. We should not be consuming animals on a daily basis. Meat should be a treat, right? In my family, we eat animals only on the weekend, and during the rest of the week, we stick to eggs, beans, legumes, rice, and vegetables. So to cut the costs, you can choose buying your produce from a farmer's market, or maybe even to get into contact with farmers who would sell you a better quality meat directly. However, from my experience, reducing animal food altogether has been the best saving for us. Yes, this means that you would have to learn how to cook with beans and legumes and vegetables, and how to create satiating meals for your family without meats. But believe me, this is not impossible. Just like with anything else in life, this is just a skill. And the more you do it, the better at it you'll get. If all of us would follow these guidelines, the world would be a much cleaner place. The environment would be cleaner, and animals would grow in more humane ways. Having said all of that, I do not recommend not eating animal food at all. This is, in my experience, not in alignment with the hormonal system. For women like myself and like a lot of my clients, this is actually dangerous. Especially a few years down the road, it leads to depletion of minerals and vitamins and just happy hormones. And a lot of us end up just feeling frustrated, sad, bitter, cranky. And you guys know it's hard to be a parent to begin with. It's hard to do a good job as a mother, as a wife and a mother. And so please eat in a way that is going to be in alignment with your health, and is going to help you to feel good in your body, but at the same time to still stay compassionate to our beautiful environment. And always remember, every time you pay for something, you cast a vote. The laws of supply and demand are very simple. The more you demand of a particular food, the more it will appear in the supermarkets. So let's choose better quality foods for the sake of our families and the planet. So, with that said, I am sending you so much love and so many blessings. If you have any questions with regards to anything I covered and mentioned today, please do not hesitate to reach out to me. You can find me either on Facebook, or you can send me an email. So on Facebook, you can find me. I go by Dorit Palvanov, and my email is dorit@healthbeginswithmom.com. All right, guys, I'll catch you next time. Bye. Thank you for listening to the Health Begins with Mom show. I love hearing from you, so please post your comments and questions over at healthbeginswithmom.com/podcast. If you love the show, please share it on social media, and in your real life with other moms who might enjoy this content. And if you have a burning question or topic you'd like me to hit on the show, just drop me a line at dorit@healthbeginswithmom.com. And if you love this show and really want to support it, please go to iTunes, write a review, and subscribe. Thank you so much for listening, and I'll catch you next time. Much love and many blessings.